Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Beauty means different things to different people. Inner and outer beauty is sometimes not seen as equally important, for example, and what qualifies as beautiful perhaps really is in the eye of the beholder. My guest today is one of my favourite makeup artists, someone who I've worked with for the past 5 years or so. She's definitely my first go-to for my own professional shoots, and she's worked with many famous faces and household name brands. Hayley Dutton's a makeup artist and a hairstylist with almost 10 years experience in corporate advertising and fashion across all forms of media. Hayley has led large teams, such as the creative director for both Rimmel London and Covergirl in Australia and New Zealand, for events such as Australian Fashion Week, Splendour at the Grass, and the Falls Festival, just to name a few. Her days are spent creating beautiful, bold and natural looks on shoots, presenting makeup masterclasses, educating techniques, trends, tips, as well as new products launching for her favourite brands. She also runs her very own Beauty Masterclass, where she teaches women how to create easy everyday makeup for any occasion. She's on Instagram and it's always awesome. It makes me feel very, very frumpy when I look at it. So fittingly, I'm going to welcome Hayley Dutton to the Politics of Beauty.
Ta-da! Hello.
Hello.
Thank you.
I feel like we should have some visuals on this because your Instagram is incredible. And if I rolled out of bed every day looking like that, that would be great.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Seriously, I would love to have a visual right now of what I look like. It's quite horrendous. So, it's a bit of smoke and mirrors on the old Instagram. But yeah, thank you. No, I do put some work in my Instagram, and I love to sort of showcase lots of different looks and try and, represent visually what I'm up to on a daily basis, and now trying to sort of show what things inspire me because, with the work I do, you are inspired by so many different things. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Excellent. But you weren't always a makeup artist, were you? You had a different career. So tell us a little bit about that.
My life actually started off in stockbroking and then in finance at Macquarie Bank. So, yeah, I worked in marketing at Macquarie Bank, and it was an amazing company to work for, except for when I was sitting in the meetings changing people's face shapes. I've got these amazing, incredible, investment teams talking about long, short equitized investments. And I was sitting there going, now what are we going to do with those brows? How am I going to change that face shape? Now, what color would go with that outfit? So from there, I kind of was like, okay, I really need to be doing something creative.
I'm sort of in the wrong place.
Yeah, right. You reckon? I know. I did a business degree and I worked with Macquarie for a long time. I travelled over to London and they saved my job for me, and I came back, and then, that's when I realised I needed to be, doing something a little bit more creative.
And so as a child, did you have sort of a creative kind of outlet? Were you into things like art and craft? Were you a painter? Is there any link to your early childhood to what you do today?
Yeah, it's funny, because I didn't really get into art. I didn't love it. But what I was obsessed with is I would always have my magazines and I would create mood boards. So whether it was around colour or a look. So I didn't actually connect sort of, makeup artistry to that. But that was obviously the beginning of me sort of mapping out that sort of creative side. And I guess that's how I sort of attack every job I go on. It's kind of like a mood board. There's reference imagery. Then you kind of put together these beautiful looks. So that's sort of what I was doing, I guess, as a single child with no brothers or sisters. I would sit there and rip up magazines and put together mood boards. So I guess that's kind of where it started.
So you're obviously a visual thinker. I guess that leaving of a corporate career where you probably had a degree of success and you obviously had studied for it. I mean, how did you actually do that? Did you study makeup artistry at night? Was there a transition period, or was it okay, I can't do this anymore, and then you sort of had to find your niche?
Yeah, good question. I actually went from finance into advertising. So I kind of took that step through advertising. And in advertising, I had a lot of clients that I managed who were in more creative industries. So, say, for example, we worked with Universal Music and people like that. So we were doing a lot of campaigns around artists, and there were a lot of shoots that we had to manage. And one day we were down at Cornell actually shooting this amazing album cover, and it was with Vanessa Amorosi. And my sort of role would normally, I was a senior account manager, so I would kind of, I'd be like the spreadsheet woman, getting everyone together, managing internals and externals. And we got onto the location and we had a massive Winnebago where the hair and makeup artist was with Vanessa. Anyway, I walked into the Winnebago and, there she was, doing a hair and makeup. And I was like, this is what I need to be doing. And literally the next day, I had booked myself into a Napoleon course, and I did I think it was I don't know, maybe a 9-week course, and you did like a Saturday and a Sunday every week. And I was just like, this is what I need to be doing. And I did that, and then I loved it. And then I ended up doing a year, certificate foreign makeup, so full-time at Cameron Jane, where we kind of lived and breathed makeup. We did everything from, period makeup to TV, film, everything that you had to learn with hair and makeup we did there for the year. So that's kind of how it all sort of, planned out, I guess.
And where was your first job in makeup? Like, where did you get your first gigs? Was it kind of just an individual who kind of said, hey, or did you get to work on a set? Like, what was that first gig like?
Well, we did a lot of work experience. So as with most, I think sort of jobs you go into, or certainly with apprenticeships, you do have to do a lot of work experience. So I think
slave labor, I call that, but that's okay.
You got it. I know, right. So we was actually quite lucky at Cameron Jane, because we had a lot of different industries who would come in and say, right, we've got a big production on. We need, 10, as you said, little slaves or minions to come in and help us out. So I had done a lot of work experience, and I actually did do a lot of weddings. So gosh, that is such great. I can't even remember what my first big job was. Oh, you know what? It might have been on The Great Gatsby.
Oh, that's not bad.
So I think it was because that was through Cameron Jane, but that was sort of at the end of my work experience. So a whole bunch of girls and guys from the school that I was at, we went to The Great Gatsby, and that was just incredible. So we worked on there helping, the hair and makeup teams, and, we'd have to go in on set, and we did the massive big party scenes for The Great Gatsby at Moore Park. I was out at Fox Studios, and there was sort of, these massive areas, like even just the whole kitchen there was incredible, just to feed all of the staff that were on there. And there was these massive big like corridors of rooms like filled with Prada and Yves Saint Laurent, like all of the clothing and the shoes. And then you'd get onto set, and there was Leonardo DiCaprio, and it was out of this world. I'm so glad you asked me that question, Amber, because that just really took me down memory lane, and I'm feeling all nostalgic now. I'm like, that's really incredible.
Oh, happy to help you with that. And that was a great story. It wasn't sort of something dull and insignificant. Most of us would have watched that film and gone, oh, look at the hair and makeup, look at the clothes. I mean, it was one of the things that made the film, I think, as much as the script and the actors and the famous faces. It was all that other stuff which really brought it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. It is amazing how, all those different teams come together and, bring these kind of stories to life.
I have touched on your social media, and it is always fantastic to see the different looks. And some of them are not things we might wear to the supermarket, obviously, electric blue eyes and lots of glitter. But the idea that social media makes it easy to see beauty in all its facets can also, obviously, as we touched on, be smoke and mirrors. And natural beauty is great, but obviously you're in the world where looking glam and having your hair and makeup done is not something all of us can do or afford to do every day. I mean, are there pros and cons to the way in which we perceive beauty through social media?
Absolutely. Yeah. And as you said, I kind of touched on that, within the first sort of 30 seconds of us talking. And, social media is a bit of a beast, and it can be a great thing, but it also can be a very negative thing. As you said, I am in the industry of, making people look beautiful. But, I think it's really about how you feel, you know what I mean? And if you feel amazing with a tinted moisturizer and running a brush through your hair and off you go, then, bloody fantastic. Whatever works. But yeah, social media is a funny thing. Everything looks wonderful, and that sort of goes beyond beauty as well, doesn't it? I mean, everyone's got a fabulous.
Absolutely. Everything's filtered. Everything has a
Totally.
lens. Even people's holiday photos,
Totally.
they make you think that they're doing these amazing things all the time when most of the time, 99% of life is pretty ordinary.
Oh, and like, how about the family holiday? I mean, your boys are amazing, but I mean, seriously, come on a family holiday with me. It ain't, yeah, the rose-colored glasses come off. It's pretty much, it's crazy town. Like, I've got girls that are whinging, and I've got, four big personalities in my family, and someone wants to do this and the other wants. Seriously, it's like a race just to get to the end of the night of the holiday and have 400 cocktails and go to bed. So yeah, it's a funny thing. Social media, I love using social media to sort of, as I said, represent things that inspire me and looks that I love. But yeah, I guess the other side of social media is we're not always seeing kind of the everyday, what's happening at home situation.
Absolutely. Confidence in something you've mentioned as part of your gig is key for many people to succeed in all areas of life. And confidence obviously can come from various sources. It can be, exercising to feel great, to look good. Obviously, the visuals of what you do mean that people do look their best, and you do make people look phenomenal and help them build that confidence, particularly if they're going to do something really big like speak at an event or go to a wedding or be part of something where they feel like they're going to get their photos done professionally, and that includes hair and makeup, always does and always has. Why is confidence something you're really passionate about?
Actually, confidence just sort of comes up in everything I talk about, really, because I guess that's sort of where my passion for what I do comes from. And it even goes back all the way through to when I was younger, I had really, really bad skin, and I remember all of my girlfriends were always beautiful. They're always these bronzed goddesses, and here I was with the pale skin and the pimples. And when I discovered, I think it was like a pimple cream or something, and I noticed that it kind of gave a coverage to my skin, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And that's when I sort of started to play with makeup. And when I was able to transform myself from the 13, 14, however old I was, 14-year-old geeky looking
Oh,
girl
those
with
awkward
pimples,
years.
yeah, right, when I was able to see the transformation, it sort of came with a power, and that power is confidence. And that also goes through to, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 24, and she was only 40. And, she recalls one of the most powerful parts of her kind of journey of breast cancer was her experience with Look Good, Feel Better.
Oh,
And,
they're a great organisation. They do so
oh,
much amazing work.
just amazing. And, I didn't know anything about that, being that at that age, I was still in finance at the time. And, I remember her explaining to me, just how I feel when I walk out of there, Hayley. It was just amazing. And, as soon as not long after I finished my course, as we were talking about with going into the Great Gatsby, as soon as I was certified, the first thing I did was go to Look Good, Feel Better, because I wanted to be a part of that. If I could be a part of a woman's journey where for that 1 hour, they are able to, lean into that power and, for a minute not feel like, that woman who's feeling frail and sick and, pasty and grey and just feeling, crap, to feeling vibrant and a bit of life. And it's just incredible when you go into these sessions. These women walk in, and it's hard, to kind of get used to seeing them. And, you feel really emotional when you spend time with these people. And 40 minutes into the class, they've all got smiles on their faces. They've got a bit of blush on, a bit of lippy, and they walk out like completely different people. So again, that whole confidence kind of story, I guess, has sort of come from those places for me. And then as I've moved through and, worked with a lot of women in business, being in business myself prior to this and now, just makeup it's superficial, right? But when you look past that, and when you're able to give someone a tool, as materialistic as it may be, makeup doesn't really matter, does it? When you're able to make someone feel amazing and make them feel confident, make them feel like they can take on the world and, walk into a room and hold themselves, that's a really beautiful superpower. And, that's what I love sharing with people every day, as often as I can.
Love it. So makeup is more than smoke and mirrors. And do you find, however, that obviously we're working at home more, and the past 12 months have been unprecedented for many people. And so how we present perhaps in an office environment or going into a studio isn't quite the same as it was. Are there any sort of tips and advice you have in terms of how we can still, look good, feel good on our Zoom calls, but obviously we don't necessarily need to have a full power lip and lots of makeup and a hair done every day to really kind of put our message out there. Is there a difference to where we were 12 months ago, or do you think it's all just about where you're at and what you're doing that day?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And just on the topic of how things have changed, goodness me, like look, 12 months, over the past 12 months, has it not just been absolutely crazy? Like it's the whole world has shifted. But I mean, who would have thought we'd be sitting on Zoom, video calls for three quarters of the day? So I guess because of COVID, there has been that change. And some people like to, doll themselves up before they go to work, and some people like us are trying to hustle, children, husband, get out the door, maintain a job, go to meetings, do presentations, come home and be a domestic goddess. And, you're trying to do it all. So really, like, who the hell has got time to be spending 10, 15, 20 minutes on their makeup every day? I mean, like, come on. So, there are small things you can do. And again, it just comes back to you as a person and what you feel comfortable with. Again, if you feel comfortable rocking up to work with a top knot and get shit done kind of attitude, then you go, girl. But there are some small things you can do, like
I'm sure that's for the collagen blessed 25-year-old. I'm not sure it's happening at my age, but yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, even just like for the Zoom calls, it's a simple, whether you like a BB cream or a light foundation, a little bit of mascara and a bit of lip gloss. You know what I mean? Just those small things, that you can do. I mean, then there's people who like to go that next step and they like to do, like a full foundation, and then they might do like a little bit of a contour, so just adding a bit of color underneath the cheekbones just to give you that kind of little bit of a chiseled look. And again, with your lipstick, you just pop a little bit of your lipstick on your lips and then smudge a bit of that onto your cheeks. So it can be as simple or as difficult, as you want it to be. And it's, how you like feeling.
Of course. And I guess
Really.
It depends who's on the other end of that Zoom call as well. If it's a big potential multi-million dollar
You got
client, I don't probably the 3-day-old hair and
the dry shampoo
is
and
probably not going to cut it.
Not going to roll. Yeah, right. I know.
And this is obviously with this podcast, I have both male and female listeners. I mean, with blokes, is there any? I mean, I know when I worked in TV, we used to put a bit of powder on the blokes, a bit of foundation, particularly if they have shiny spots on their head. I mean,
you got it.
Do you think people should be kind of thinking about that still from a male perspective, or do you think we just kind of a bit more accepting and we're a bit harder on us ladies?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, and definitely topical at the moment, especially as we have people talking more around men and people's preferences in, sexual preferences and how they present as a person,
Yes.
I do a lot of work as well with men who are transitioning through Dress for Success. And, those men who are, moving through that kind of journey are also needing to know, how do I apply makeup, having been a man all of their life and had no idea, whether they were someone who were in TV and
probably haven't paid any attention to the stuff that we had. We grew up with Dolly magazine and, all that stuff where they give you some tips. And I still remember those step-by-step photos for the smoky eye, and I could still never master it, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. So it's it's a different world we live in, and there are a lot of corporate younger guys who actually do like to wear a little bit of concealer under their eyes, and fully into doing their hair. So again, it's just horses for courses, I guess.
You've mentioned some of the charity work that you have done. Obviously, it matters to you, and it's an important part of your personal brand and what you do for a living. How do you think the world of beauty, which can seem very superficial and I guess something of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and not-for-profit work really relate to each other? How can it sort of complement each other? And you've given us some great examples with Dress for Success, for example. Is there any other ways that you think that actually what you're doing is actually complementary to the not-for-profit space?
Yeah, well, I guess that depends on the organization. Like, as you said, I have mentioned Dress for Success, which is a massive one because obviously, what we're trying to teach here is for men and women who are going in to get that first interview, how to present their best self. But there's also other organizations like a government sort of group called Starts. And basically, what they do is they help refugees and people from other countries who are coming over here, especially women, victims of trauma. So I guess how does beauty come into that? Well, for them and for me, it's about giving those young women the confidence, after they've been through, gosh, the most dire situations and, things that we living in this country, we are so lucky that we're not exposed to, people coming from Afghanistan and Syria and so many countries where they've just gone through the most horrific of ordeals. And when they come over here, how does beauty fit into that? Well, it's about giving them an hour or 2 hours of playing with makeup and showing how that can give you that kind of feel good factor. So, it really depends on the group, but I definitely think, definitely beauty and non-for-profit, there's a big kind of relationship there. And, I'd say to all the other makeup artists, find where you can, help other people. And, we're not psychologists. I mean, in a way we are psychologists. I get when you sit down and you're touching someone.
Oh, I think I've told my definitely told my hairdresser things that perhaps even my family didn't know. So there you go.
Right? Exactly. So, just some advice if there are any makeup artists out there listening, you may not think that, you're not a psychologist or there might not be ways that you can help, but you can always find somewhere where you can help. And definitely confidence building is a massive thing. And I mean, who doesn't want to feel confident?
Absolutely, of course. So, a bit more on you now. So, if there was a book or film that you always return to or comes to mind on a regular basis, what would it be and why?
That's a great question. And I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I'm actually going to be really honest and say I have only just picked up a book in the last, like, however many years. Finally, I'm getting my girls to sleep of an evening and I can actually go into my bed.
Excellent.
So funny you should ask that. But when I was 18, 19, I picked up the book, The Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you've read that one.
I remember that book. I don't actually recall reading it, but I know it was very big at the time.
Yeah. So funnily enough, my brother, he's actually going to do a PhD in philosophy, God love him. He and his partner gave me the book. They didn't realize that I loved it. It was my favorite book when I was 19. But at Christmas time, I opened up my Christmas present and there was a Celestine Prophecy. So I've literally just read probably the first 5 pages. So that was a book that I always came back to. And, my memory on it is quite shady, but I think I remember loving it because it was all about, the way that we've been conditioned through history, whether it be religion or politics or whatever it was, but then the ideas that things happen for a reason. So a little bit intriguing, and I can't remember the exact, story of it all, but it is a book that I read back then, which I was obsessed with. And then with all the baby brand, I've completely forgotten. So I'm just embarking back on that journey now.
Well, it's good to revisit. I think rereading books many years later was actually a good thing because you see it with a different lens as well because you've got different
Absolutely.
experiences. The 18-year-old you and you now would be very different in how
Yeah.
you'd interpret it perhaps, or maybe not.
Who knows?
Maybe
I'll let you know. Give
keep
me
us
another month.
posted.
Another month of 5 minutes of reading after I get my children to bed and you know the deal.
I think I only get through about 10 pages a night before bed. My children are a
There
lot
you
older, so
are.
there you go. I'd like to say it gets easier, but yeah, it depends what time you go to bed too. I'm an
Are
early
you? What
bird.
time do you go to
I
bed?
go to bed quite early. Early, like, between 9 and 10, depending what's happening. So
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
try to, but then I'm up early. So I think it all depends on your rhythms. But that book does make me think I should have a look at it as well. It sounds like it's got some good things in there.
I reckon you should let's revisit it. Hey, let's talk in a month. Let's do this.
And we'll see where we're at. We can
Yeah,
compare notes and start a book club
totally.
online.
Could be a life-changing experience.
It could be. So our final takeaway, what would you say is your one big thing or your overarching philosophy for the politics of beauty that you'd like to leave today with everyone listening?
I just think beauty is something different to everybody. It's so subjective, and I just think whatever makes you feel amazing, you do. I mean, don't follow trends, never follow trends. Follow what makes you feel great. And the other thing is as well, always find a way to help somebody else. It's so important. The smallest of things that you can do can completely change someone else's path, if not day, complete path. So that's one thing that I sort of try and think about with the work that I'm doing. It's sort of like, okay, how can I help someone today? How am I going to make someone else feel amazing? So yeah, when it comes to, making yourself feel amazing, and, how can you make other people feel amazing?
That's a fantastic way to wrap up. If you do want to connect with Hayley, I will have some details of how to connect with her and her amazing Instagram on my show notes. You have been listening to The Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines. Until next time, be well. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed The Politics of Everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests, so if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdaines.com and my crew will get back to you very soon.